Hey, Paul Morrow here. If you want to get wealthy, dump your bank. Let's talk about dumping the bank and borrowing from yourself. And I'll tell you more about this as we go along, but if you want to follow us, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get the link on how to join us at some of the live meetings we're doing around, just click those links and we'll talk about how you can build your wealth faster by not building the wealth of the bank. So let me just remind you that if you borrow to invest in a building and a house or a piece of real estate, and you get a $300,000 mortgage, and you look at that mortgage over 30 years, you're going to pay the bank $1 million. It's okay to borrow on a long-term basis, but not keep the loan long-term. The average term in America is about 3.5 years for a mortgage. People refi, sell, buy it out, or whatever. But let's talk about smart ways to get money without enriching the bank. And I'll give you 3 great pathways to getting rich. Actually, it's in my 3rd book that's coming out, 5 Pathways to Wealth. And so, number 1, when you can borrow from yourself. What does that mean? When you borrow from yourself and you pay interest to yourself, you're the one you're enriching, not the bank. And let me tell you how you can borrow. If you're an employee and you have a 401k plan, and you've got money in that 401k plan, you should know you have borrowing rights as an active employee. And when you borrow and you pay interest to who? Yourself. You're paying interest to yourself. I'm not a big fan of borrowing against your retirement plan for stupid things, but especially to get rid of high interest rate debt or to do some sort of a business venture, I'm okay with that. And it beats the dickens out of borrowing from a bank who's got a monthly payment that if you don't pay it, it gets really nasty and they can bang up your credit and everything. I would borrow against your 401k first. Second, if you're a self-employed person with a side gig, for goodness sakes, don't do an IRA, right? You cannot borrow against an IRA. You can't borrow against a SEP. However, you can borrow against what's called a uni-K or a one-person K or a solo K. Those are all the same terms for having your own little 401k. So let's just use an example. You're working like crazy. You're trying to build wealth. You read up on having the side gigs. I'm a big believer in the side gig. It's a part of my wealth building book that you can make a lot of wealth by having a side thing, whether it's real estate or any other project. And when you open a side business, you can open a side investment account called a one-person 401k, a solo K, whatever. And let's say you have extra profits and you built up $100,000 in there. Where would you go to get money for your next venture? You would borrow against your own solo K, because you can borrow against your 401k at work plus borrow against your solo K, and there's no limits to how many different loans you can take. So you borrow against yourself, you pay yourself, okay? This is really hot. 3rd thing, borrow against your 401k, borrow against your solo K, borrow against your insurance. For those of you that are young, the smartest thing that you can do is do Walt Disney, do Malcolm Forbes, do all the famous people that have bought insurance, and then when they needed money, they borrow against it. I did it myself. To start my business life over, midlife, many of you that follow me along, I do a lot of talking about starting midlife. I started on 0. In fact, not only 0 at age 45, I'd have negative net worth because I had just gotten divorced and owed millions of dollars in alimony and child support. Guess what? I rebuilt all that from 42 to 62, right, in the last 20 years, and part of it was restarting business by doing an insurance loan. If you buy insurance and you have cash value insurance, you can borrow against it. You don't get a monthly bill. Once you've had a policy over 10 years, most of them are 0 interest to borrow. And what do you do with that money? Use it creatively, not to go just buy toys or go on vacation. But if you're doing constructive borrowing, you can borrow to start a business, borrow to start a piece of real estate. Borrowing against your own insurance, again, means that if you're paying interest, you're paying it to yourself, okay? So let's do smart borrowing, not dumb borrowing. Let's get rid of the bank. Let's borrow against your 401k at work, borrow against your uni-K for your side job, borrow against your personal insurance cash value, okay? And then the 4th thing, which is really hot, is we want everyone to invest and get affluent. And investing, whether you're a startup investor or you're a midlife investor, is to build up a nice portfolio of either mutual funds or ETFs or stocks, whatever. And if you have a portfolio, you can borrow against your portfolio just like you can borrow against a passbook loan in the old days from your bank. In the old days, if you had a passbook with $10,000 and you went to the bank and said, can I get a $5,000 loan? They would take a lien on your passbook and give you the loan. Now, loans against your portfolio are not only smart, they're tax-free smart. So if you have a $100,000 portfolio, full of McDonald's and Philip Morris stock and Procter & Gamble and Kimberly-Clark and dividend-paying stocks. Those dividends are taxable to you. However, if you take $50,000 loan against that portfolio, and let's just say that $50,000 loan has loan interest charges of maybe $3,000, and your $100,000 portfolio is getting dividends of $4,000, the $3,000 goes against the $4,000 and basically reduces your income taxes. That's number one. Number two, the money you borrow from your portfolio is tax-free. You're not selling the stocks. You're just using the stocks like a passbook loan. And you're borrowing against who? You're borrowing against yourself, okay? And so if you borrow against your portfolio to do constructive things, again, I'm not suggesting you do irresponsible borrowing. I am definitely suggesting that you use your own assets to discharge high credit card debt. I know people that have started businesses with 10 credit cards that have $25,000 on each credit card, and then we paid them all off by using their own UniK loans to borrow against their UniKs, borrow against their 401k, borrow against their stock portfolios to pay off those loans on a financially smart basis. So I'm not a big believer in non-constructive debt. I like borrowing for business, borrowing for real estate. These things are important and they're asset building, okay? And so to build your wealth, use debt wisely. One of the ways you can use debt wisely is by borrowing wisely, okay? Investing and borrowing against yourself, whether it's an equity line or a mortgage or insurance, these are all smart ways to borrow. Now, I will tell you, interest rates are on the move. I don't know where they're gonna go. Interest rates go up and down. When I bought my first business, I paid about 18% for the building that I bought in mortgage interest. But guess what? I had money in a money market fund that was making 13%. So these things travel along in tandem. So I actually think 7% mortgages, folks, is not the end of the world. If you're buying a piece of property, don't wait for mortgages to go down. Buy it now. If interest rates go down, refinance it, okay? The smart thing to do is to get into investing using other people's money. And other people's money can be borrowing from a bank for a mortgage, borrowing from your insurance, borrowing from your retirement fund to work to get into the investing to build wealth. Building wealth sometimes takes this leverage. That means you can control a $500,000 house when you put down just $100,000, 20%. You're controlling the gross of a $500,000 asset. So do the math. If your house goes up at 5%, your $500,000 house went up $25,000 in value, right? That goes a long way for paying all the costs of the borrowing of the $400,000 that you had to borrow, okay? So use loans wisely. Get rid of bad debt. That means high interest credit card debt and other debt. Protect your credit, right? These are really important things. So let's dump the banks. Let's stop making them get rich. Let's use them as little as we can, and let's borrow from places that are smart financial places to borrow, which means borrowing against your insurance and build up as much cash value as you can in your insurance because it's a really smart place to borrow. Borrow against your invested assets, build up as much as in your portfolio, and keep in mind your brokerage portfolio is like a passbook loan. You can borrow against it. Also, make sure if you have a side gig, right away set up a retirement fund that is not an IRA for your side gig in which you can build up pre-tax money that you can borrow tax-free to put into your investments. Doing smart borrowing to build your wealth is just part of the art of being smart. And I'll see you next time at one of our live meetings in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Providence, Rhode Island, or in our big financial forum that we're doing in September of 2025. For information about that, just click on this link, and I'll see you there signing some books. And I'm Paul Morrow. I'll see you again next time.